We're always told to chase happiness, right? But what if that's only part of the story? Today, we're going to dig into the work of cognitive neuroscientist Dr. Tali Sharot to really understand what our brains are wired for when it comes to living a good, fulfilling life. So let's dive right in. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt maybe in your 30s or 40s like you're just on a downward slope, kind of heading for rock bottom? Well, if you've ever felt that way, it turns out you are definitely not alone. In fact, neuroscience actually has a name for this whole phenomenon. And this is it. Researchers call it the U-shaped happiness curve. And what's wild is that studies from all over the world, with tens of thousands of people, show this exact same pattern. We start out super happy as kids, right? Then our happiness levels dip, and they hit their absolute lowest point in midlife, usually in our 40s. But, and this is the good news, after that dip, it starts to climb right back up. We actually get happier and more optimistic as we get older. So that midlife slump, it's a feature, not a bug. Okay, so that raises a pretty big question. Is a good life just about trying to max out that happiness curve? Dr. Sharot used to think so. She thought basically everything we do is in pursuit of happiness. But her research led her to a much more interesting conclusion, that a truly fulfilling life actually rests on three totally distinct pillars. So, the first two pillars are ones we get confused all the time. On one side, you've got happiness, that good feeling, joy, pleasure. And on the other, you have meaning, a sense of purpose. And what's so important to get is that these can be totally separate. Think about it. You can have a job that's incredibly meaningful, but doesn't exactly make you jump for joy every single day. Sure, they can overlap, but not always. Our brains are motivated by both. And this brings us to the full picture. The third pillar, and this is the one we almost always overlook, is what's called a psychologically rich life. This is all about variety, diversity, and exploration. From an evolutionary point of view, this is what pushed our ancestors to see what was over the next hill. It's that drive to try new things, even if they're risky and don't guarantee you'll be happy or find meaning. So a good life? It's really a balance of all three: joy, purpose, and new experiences. Now, speaking of what drives us, let's talk about one of the most powerful forces that's hardwired right into our brains, the optimism bias. It's kind of like your own personal reality distortion field, and it has this huge impact on your decisions, your motivation, pretty much everything. So, what is it exactly? Well, the optimism bias is basically a systematic mistake our brains make. We consistently think we have a better chance of experiencing good things, like, getting that promotion or living to be 100, and we underestimate our chances of bad things happening, like getting sick. It might sound like a flaw, but it turns out it's a huge driver of human progress. And just how valuable is this bias? Well, get this. According to research Dr. Sharot cites, a single point increase on the optimism scale gives you the same boost in well-being as earning an extra $33,000 a year. Let that sink in. That is a staggering number, and it just goes to show how much our internal outlook really shapes our quality of life. But it's not just about expecting good things to happen. It's about how you explain the world to yourself. This table just breaks it down perfectly. When something good happens, an optimist takes it personally. I succeeded because I'm a hard worker. But a pessimist, they'll say it was a fluke. Oh, I just got lucky. And when something bad happens, it's the complete opposite. This interpretation style creates this incredibly powerful self-fulfilling prophecy that literally shapes your actions and, in the end, your outcomes. Okay, so this brings us to another fascinating quirk of the human mind: our deep, almost irrational preference for stories over statistics. I mean, if you've ever tried to convince someone with a perfectly logical, data-driven argument and just completely failed, well, this next part is for you. Dr. Sharot tells this amazing personal story from the 2016 presidential debates. A pediatrician, Dr. Ben Carson, was presenting all this scientific data about vaccines. In response, Donald Trump told a single emotional story about an employee's child. Now, even as a neuroscientist who knew the data was on Carson's side, Dr. Sharot admits that the story had a much more powerful and immediate emotional impact on her. It was a huge reminder of which method is truly more influential. And this just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you have the logical, data-first approach. On the other, the emotional, story-driven one. And our first instinct, especially when we disagree with someone, is to just throw more facts at them. But neuroscience shows that this usually just causes the other person's brain to shut down. The story, on the other hand, it just bypasses all those defenses. So why are stories so ridiculously effective? Dr. Sharot breaks it down into three key reasons. First, stories create emotion. An emotion is like a big flashing sign in our brain that screams, pay attention, this is important. Second, it's just how we evolved to learn, not from massive data sets, but from the experiences of the few people in our tribe. And third, stories are almost always new. You've never heard that exact story before, and novelty is one of the best ways to grab your brain's attention. Okay, so we've covered the U-shaped nature of happiness, the three pillars of a good life, the incredible power of optimism, and why a good story is so irresistible. So, how do we pull all of this together? Let's talk about how to actually harness your own mind. All right, here's your takeaway toolkit. First, understand that U curve. If you're in that midlife dip, know that it's a real, documented thing, and it does get better. Second, balance the Trinity. Don't just chase fleeting moments of happiness. You need to actively seek out meaning and new experiences, too. Third, fuel your optimism. Remember, how you interpret events creates a self-fulfilling cycle. And finally, master the story. Whether you're trying to influence other people or just motivate yourself, an emotional story is always going to beat a spreadsheet full of facts. And that brings us to the final thought. We know our brains are fundamentally wired for stories, and we know our beliefs about the future literally shape our actions in the present. This isn't some self-help magic, it's just neuroscience. So the real question to leave you with is this: what story are you telling yourself about your own future?